This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites, like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies, like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee for your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Hey, podcast listeners. Great news. All your favorite comedy podcasts can be enjoyed ad-free on Amazon Music. Listen to your favorite music plus top podcasts completely ad-free on Amazon Music, included with your Prime membership. Dive into a world of laughs by downloading the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free-comedy. That's amazon.com/ad-free-comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Our initial pitch was like, this lady's a fucking slob. It was like, the character was still named Lindy, and it was like, Lindy's a big fat loser who sucks. Everything about her life is stupid, and it's her fault.
Guess how many friends Lindy has? None.
No, like, the idea was like, I mean, much closer to my actual life, was like, this chick's a fucking mess, but in her head, she thinks her biggest problem is that she's fat, which is like not even one of the problems.
Not even in the top 10.
Hi, Text Me Back listeners. We're here for you. It's me, Lindy.
That was giving Frasier. I'm listening.
I'm Frasier.
And I'm Niles?
Yeah.
Or am I the dad?
Well, neither Niles nor the dad is on the radio show. You should be Daphne.
Oh, I'm Roz.
Roz.
Or
the
sports guy, Bulldog. I was about to be like Moose, and then I realized that Moose is the real name of the dog that played Eddie on the show. And then I was like, again, I do not know my nephew's birthdays. I know the real name of Frasier's dog. So
I'd like to apologize to Roz for saying Daphne.
Roz is union. So shout out to her, workers queen.
Okay, welcome to Frasier. I'm Frasier.
I'm Roz.
We have a very special episode for you this week. We didn't record one.
It's true.
But that's because we decided to do a very special treat, which is to give you, our podcast audience, access to the first episode of our Patreon special, Too Shrill, Too Furious, Portland Drift, which is a rewatch and a sort of retrospective reminiscence on the TV show Shrill, which I made.
What? I did not make it and was not involved at all. And yet I think it's really important that I'm there. No, that's not true. I did send in a poster that was used on set.
You were involved in the props, and you also were involved in acting.
Many were saying that I was considered for some of Hollywood's top awards for my background work. So you're going to want to check this out.
Wait, and you were the inspiration for some stuff that got cut. So
yes, that is true. That's true.
So if you want to hear about all of these secrets,
yes,
and also in this first episode we're going to share with you right now, I tell you step by step how I got my book turned into a TV show. So if that's your dream, go ahead and listen. And
honestly, I found this conversation very interesting. I feel like we had never really like sat down and talked about it before. I thought it was so interesting. I learned a lot from you during this episode, and I feel like if you like the dishy scoops, you should totally subscribe, because Lindy is dishing and scooping. I know I've already said that, but it's true. The scoops are there. The dish is there.
Yep.
The hot goss is steaming. So if you want to watch the whole series, we're going through all 3 seasons of Shrill. And it's been really fun so far and really funny. So patreon.com/textmebackpod.
We're posting a new Lil episode every week or every other week, every couple of weeks.
Depending on where the brainestroni is at.
Yeah.
But we strive for weekly for you, our Patreon subscribers. And now for you, the regulars who are considering subscribing.
So give it a listen. And if you like what you hear, give it a subscription.
I'd like to say something else. I know this is a long wind up, but I would like to tell you all this. If you've been on the fence about whether or not to subscribe to the Patreon, now is a really good time, actually, because we just found out that Apple is raising the amount of money that they are going to take from Patreon subscriptions. So we are unfortunately forced to raise our subscription amounts for new subscribers only starting in November. If you are an old subscriber, you can lock in that hot deal, Kayak Dad at $3. I don't remember what we named the $6 tier.
Big and hairy.
Pig DNA at $8. You can lock in those subscription prices anytime between now and before November. After November, things are going to go up about 50 cents per tier. So now's a really good time to subscribe. And we hope that you do, because this is the kind of stuff that's going on over on patreon.com/textmebackpod.
Don't let big tech steal $12 a year from you.
So listen to this episode. We're going to stop talking, and then you can listen to us talk some more in a different context.
Hope you like it. Bye. I mean, stay, not goodbye.
See you later. Here we are, Lindsay West, executive producer, Lindy West.
Good morning. It's time to revisit trauma.
Yeah, okay, we're doing it finally. You're welcome to Too Shrill, Too Furious, Portland Drift, where Lindy and I are going to rewatch all of Shrill. Well, rewatch is a generous term, as I've already shamefully admitted I never watched seasons 2 or 3.
Bad friend.
So be a first for me.
I can't wait till we get to the stuff you haven't seen before.
I know. I'm kind of excited.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited. Sorry. Why did I say it like that?
There's some good jokes in season 2, and I don't remember anything about season 3 because it was during COVID, and I was
we all were.
as we love to do on this show. I was in a fugue state.
That was when our brainestroni became fully boiled.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I do think I used to be smarter and sharper.
It feels like I used to know things.
I know.
And now, no, I don't know her. I don't know him. And I don't know them. So,
no. That's nice, though, to be inclusive like that.
Yeah, I thought so. So we're going to talk about little Shrilly Shrill.
Yeah, we're going to go episode by episode and have a little discussion on each. Our opinions. How did it hold up? I'm going to drop some behind the scenes tidbits.
It's going to be great.
Turd bits.
And turd bit. And you might be thinking, hey, are you guys going to wear the same outfits for every episode of this that you do? And the answer is yes, and not just because we recorded this all in one day.
Megan.
Other reasons.
Megan, stop. But yeah, it's been a trip. I mean, I've only watched season 1. I'm actually very excited to get into seasons 2 and 3, season 3 I know the least.
Yeah.
So again, I wrote it.
Yeah. It's loosely based on my life, but
but season 1, it was like such a different experience when you're first building something, and there's only 6 episodes, so like we had a lot more time on each script. So season 1, I'm like, oh, I remember every word of this. Yeah. I remember every alternate line, every joke that was cut, every decision on which I was overruled. But yeah, let's talk about it.
Before we talk about the episode, do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to bring this show into fruition? Like, you wrote Shrill, the book.
Yeah.
I mentioned, by the way.
Yeah.
Not that that's important, not to make it about me. And then some celebrity bought the rights to it, and then you pitched the show, and then it became a show. But how exactly does that work?
I know. I think a lot of people are curious about this. Okay, so here's what happened. I wrote the book Shrill, a terrifying experience.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to write a book, and I had avoided writing a book for many years. I have a literary agent / angel named Gary. Gary found me in 2009 after I wrote, it was my viral Sex and the City article. Gary finds me, cold calls me. He's like, I'm a literary agent from New York City, and do you want to write a book, and do you want an agent? And I was
You
like,
said, you're not getting my social security number, scammer.
truly. I said, no, I do not want to write a book. Yes, I would like an agent. That sounds prestigious. And he was like, well, you have to do both. If you you can't do one or the other. I was like, fine. So I signed with Gary. I think I went to New York and I had lunch with Gary at the Gramercy Tavern. That's still where Gary and I have lunch every time.
Is that where you saw Ethan Hawke?
No, okay, you're right. Wow, fact check. We don't have lunch at Gramercy Tavern every time. Sometimes we go somewhere else. But I think of Gramercy Tavern. Gramercy Tavern is like a special spot to me. It's I think I signed the contract there, my first book deal. We go there for special occasions, I suppose. The place we saw Ethan Hawke was in Brooklyn. Gramercy Tavern is in Manhattan. Anyway, yeah, I've been to New York. I know the difference between Brooklyn and Manhattan.
I know a couple different boroughs.
Yeah. So okay. So then Gary's like, okay, you got to write a book proposal. I was like, I don't know what that is. He's like, here, let me send you some samples. I was like, I'm never going to do this. And it wasn't like that I was ungrateful. It was that I had low self-esteem. And I was like, I'm boring. I don't understand what I could fill a book with. What do you mean? There's nothing to this.
I'm an empty vessel, Gare Bear.
Like, I just do, like, I write my little shit poops in the newspaper, but that's not a book. I was really sort of at that time, I don't think I'd ever written a feature article for the paper. I don't think I'd written anything over 500 words. I didn't think of myself as a real writer still, even though by 2009 I'd been at the Stranger for 4 years. But I just didn't have the confidence, and I didn't understand. I still thought that writers were magical people with magical well springs in their minds churning out ideas.
Such a mystique about writers, especially old-timey male writers, a lot of smoke, a lot of shooting the shit at fancy taverns and stuff. It's and having big capital T thoughts and capital O opinions. And it just feels like one, they probably didn't do any of that. And they probably weren't as cool as we all think. And two, it's hard to think of yourself just a little baby, really, at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Having big ideas and big thoughts.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know how to do this, Gare.
Yeah.
I don't know. So then I didn't do anything for 5 years. And then at that point, I had already left the Stranger. I was at Jezebel, and then I left Jezebel. So at that point,
you still were like, I don't know what I'm doing.
But I think I had a little more confidence at that point. I had written some more long form stuff. Some bad stuff had happened to me, my dad died. I had been emotionally tortured by internet trolls for many years. Whatever. So then I was finally like, okay, Gary's gonna drop me if I don't do this, because I can't do
Gary.
I love Gary. I want to keep having chocolate pudding at the Gramercy Tavern. Gary invested 5 years of chocolate puddings at the Gramercy Tavern before he got this book proposal out of me. I know. Sweet Ahame filet was I can't get anything done unless I feel like I'm going to get in trouble. So I was finally I got to do this. I don't know how. So then it was so cute. He put together a writer's residency for me here at the cabin, where he made a brochure that said Oakhead Writer's Residency, and it had a menu, and I got to choose what food I wanted, and then nice. and I didn't have to do anything for 4 days except for sit by the fire and type my little thingy, and I did it, and I got the proposal done. And I sent it to Gary, and that's when I realized that everything is fake.
Yes.
Because Gary was like, this is great. And I was like, what?
Are you kidding?
I thought this was going to be I don't know, 20 drafts, crafting the perfect thing. He was like, no, editors just need to see that you can like, that you have ideas, enough ideas to fill a book, and that you can like put together a coherent thought. So essentially a book proposal is like a table of contents.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, if anyone's watching this for writing advice, actually, if you're not an established writer, you're going to have to write like some sample chapters. You might even have to write the whole book.
Yeah.
But so then I wrote the book. It was very scary. A lot of me on the phone to a hom from various writing retreats that I self-produced. I'm going to go to the ocean. Then the whole book will write itself. And then it's just me literally sobbing. I can't do it. I can't do it. We have to give the money back. I don't know. I can't do it.
But I already spent it on microphones.
Oh no. So anyway, then again, much like the proposal, at a certain point, my editor was like, okay, great. This is enough chapters. Let's go. And I was like, what? And he was like, these are great. And I was like, we don't need to rewrite everything. He was like, no, let's go.
What are you talking about?
What? Like, it was so much less scary than, anyway, I mean, it's like still a lot of words to write, but although Shrill's a short book, dude, Shrill is like 65,000 words. This freaking book that I'm writing right now, I'm up to like over 100,000 words.
Damn.
And it's not done.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh no, never in my life have I written a book that was too long.
Stop.
I'm always like straining to get to the word count. Anyway, I'm talking for so long.
Oh no, I love it. No, it's really interesting.
Thanks. Another thing I didn't know about publishing is that this is so sad. Unless you're like Stephen King or like James Patterson, who is on has the same publisher as me. And
nice.
Pays the bills. Like, thank you, James Patterson,
for
my book advance. Nobody gives a shit about you at all, except for when you're a debut author.
Yeah.
You think, oh, I'm going to put out my first book, and everyone's like, cool. And then, like, I'm going to put out my, like, second, third, fourth book, and people are going to be like, yeah! No. No. Everyone will buy your first book. The publisher will like go hard for your first book. And then it's like, truly like nobody cares. The more you do, the less everybody cares. And it has nothing to do. It's not just me being defensive. It's like, this is a thing. They
just drop off on the marketing for future. I
think it's just so much easier to market like, wow, hot new debut author. What's she going to say? Whatever. So they really wanted to push Shrill out fast. I was like, this was a new imprint at Hachette. So, and I was like one of their flagship authors, like to sort of define the voice of the imprint and what they wanted to say and do, like, their ethos, which was very flattering. But so they were like, we want to get this book out fast. And I was like, okay. And so it came out very fast. Like, I think I finished my edits in December and it came out in May, which is like,
oh God, that is fast.
And it might have been later than that. I might have finished my edits in like January. Very fast. By contrast, like this book I'm finishing right now, I was like, so it's probably going to come out like in the fall. And they were like, it's going to come out in fall 2025. I was like, but I want the money.
But what about my beautiful books?
No, they were like, we want to give it the marketing on-ramp that it deserves. And I was like, that's actually very kind. Thank you.
That is nice.
Anyway, book comes out in May 2016. Pre-Trump.
Remember her.
So before the book even comes out, I went on a tour with this thing called Pop-Up Magazine that doesn't exist anymore. I think it ended like last couple years. It was sort of like a This American Life live. Like it's like a bunch of different writers. Well, okay. Pop-Up Magazine. So it's like a magazine. The concept is like if you're reading a magazine, except it's being performed by you. In front of you. Yeah. Not by you. So it's like me, I met Samin Nosrat was on my tour.
Queen.
If you're looking for a list of people that live up to the hype, let me tell you.
I make her chicken every Christmas. I love her.
She's so fun and funny and cool. And actually, I think she said that when she's done with her book, she will come on our show.
Yes.
So Samin, a bunch of writers, and each person sort of gives a little multimedia presentation of an article that they've written that's like adapted for the stage. So like Samin did this really cool thing about how geopolitics change how we taste things. So like how cinnamon, you know how there's like Big Red gum is cinnamon, but it tastes different than the cinnamon that you sprinkle on your food. And that's because there's Saigon cinnamon and Ceylon cinnamon, I think.
Interesting.
And one of them, this like, oh God, my brain, you know, it's like one of probably the Ceylon cinnamon was for a long time, like the trade was destroyed or disrupted by war. Shoulda looked but anyway, and then, or like another example is that like at this time, you know, Syria was all fucked up, and she was like, you're not going to have Aleppo pepper for a while, or like you're not going to have Aleppo pepper grown in Syria, which has its own distinct taste. And like it was a super interesting talk. And then at the end, she everyone in the audience got a little cellophane packet with 2 marshmallows, one flavored with each kind of cinnamon, so that you could try the different cinnamon flavors. I know. So I was in this show, and it was a whole tour. We did like 8 cities.
Yeah.
I got paid like $5,000, which at the time I was like,
I'm rich.
You're going to give me $5,000 to go on a fun tour? I get to fly all over. Now I'm like,
I don't get out of bed for less than $40K.
Well, that's not true, but I don't know that I would do like eight shows flying all over the country for $5,000.
Traveling really sucks, and that's not that much.
Can I have $8,000? Can I have $1,000 per show? I don't know. So I did an adapted version of the first chapter of Shrill, which is about fat people in media when I was growing up. I did like a PowerPoint slideshow. So we do a show in LA at the theater at the Ace Hotel, which I don't know if that's even there anymore. Downtown LA. Afterwards, a man comes up to me in the lobby and is like, I'm Jason Richman. I'm an agent. I specialize in book to film and book to TV adaptations. Do you want to turn Shrill into a TV show? And I was like, sir, you haven't read Shrill. It's not out yet. What are you talking about?
Social security numbers.
Exactly. And then I leave. I was like, yeah, sure, buddy. And then I leave. And then later Gary emails me and he's like, hey, someone named Jason Richman contacted me and said he saw your show and blah, 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 blah. And he's a real guy. And do you want to do this? And I was like, sure. So then I go to LA, I meet with Jason. He's like, okay, here's how it works. We talk about production companies that you might want to work with. So basically every celebrity has a production company.
Yes.
Should this just be the whole first episode? It's me explaining how TV gets made?
Yeah, maybe.
Squeeze 7 episodes out of this, baby. So he's like, think about celebrities whose work you like, you know, like, and now that I'm a little more savvy, I'm like, everyone in Hollyweird is wormatooing you a little bit all the time. That's a reference to our own show. In case people didn't listen to the RFK Brainworm episode. It's like Ratatouille, but a worm. So you're always being, unless you're a Hollyweird insider, which I was not, you're always being steered a little bit. And I remember that the first person Jason mentioned was Elizabeth Banks. He was like, Elizabeth Banks has a production company. It's called Brownstone. You know, if you like her, I mean, she might be a great fit. And I do like Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah.
And I was
she
like,
seems nice.
Yeah. But then he said, like, you know, I had like 30 meetings. Like I met with so many people, you know, like I met with Brad Pitt's production company.
Ooh!
He wasn't there. Shondaland, Joey Soloway of Transparent.
Yeah.
Literally so many people.
Yeah.
And then anyway, I had all these meetings. I'm running around LA and I'm sweating. I'm trying to wear like a business girl suit and just had some really like amazing meetings and some really stupid ones. At all of the meetings, I was like, FYI, this is going to be fat abortion show. And so some of them were like, okay, bye.
Cool, thanks, bye, get out.
Goodbye.
They were switching their minds back into sleep mode,
as we like to say. And then some of them were like jazzed. And I had a lot of sushi, which was fun.
Nice.
A lot of lunch meetings. Sugarfish, which is an incredible chain in Los Angeles. And yeah, he ended up I get to the Brownstone meeting. I think it came down to Shondaland and Brownstone, which is Brownstone is Elizabeth Banks. And Shonda didn't come to the meeting. It was just some of her execs, who I love. But Liz Banks came to the meeting. And she had read the book. And she was super enthusiastic. We had a really, really fun meeting. Really great time. It's she and her husband, Max, run the company. And I just felt like she really got the book, despite being very small and beautiful. And I loved her. And it was really fun. We had a great time. So I went with Brownstone. So that was the selling of the option. So I got to have all these meetings by myself to decide who I wanted to sell the option to. And then whoever I picked, which was Brownstone, then together we develop the pitch, and then Brownstone facilitates taking the pitch out to different networks and studios. Just different networks, because Brownstone is a pod within Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers was our studio.
Of course. Normal.
So I understand it.
It makes sense.
So
just the next step was you had to go be like, hey, Bob Iger. I forget if Disney owned Hulu at the time.
No, not yet. No.
Yeah.
But I do think that's why we got canceled. It's because Disney bought Hulu and they were
personally, Bob Iger was like, gross. And
totally.
no.
I think Disney bought Hulu like in between seasons 2 and 3. And we were like, oh,
well, it was fun while
goodbye. So then Brownstone was like, this is another part where Wormatui is happening. Brownstone's like, oh, hey, and like, I think Jason wanted me to go with Brownstone from the beginning.
Yeah.
Brownstone's like, oh, we thought we can, you should meet with a bunch of different showrunners. We do think this one lady would be great.
Yeah.
Her name's Allie Rushfield. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, great. And then I'm just a little baby. So I didn't meet with anyone but Allie, because Allie was nice. And we had a nice lunch.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess I should do what Brownstone thinks.
Yeah. That's what Liz said.
That's what Liz said. But really, it's like, Allie had a deal, an overall deal at Warner Brothers, and at the agencies were trying to do a package, which is a thing where everyone on the show is from the same agency, and then they get like a kickback. Like, I don't know.
It was a whole financial Wormatui Brainastroni situation.
And to be fair, it all turned out great. We got to make the TV show, and Allie is a dear friend of mine. But like, in retrospect, I'm like, man, I really didn't.
I should have asked a single follow-up question.
Like, of course they do know what they're doing, but like, what they're trying to do is not like realize my vision.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Which is, of course, they're not. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, they are to some extent, but that's not the primary driver. So anyway, then Allie and I start working on a pitch together. We're setting it back and forth with Brownstone. We start talking about casting. Someone reaches out to Aidy Bryant, because she's like, at that point, like the only famous fat person in the age range, and also funny and wonderful. Yeah. And her people threw it in the garbage without looking at it. They're like, she's busy. She's on SNL. She's on a weekly live television show in New York.
Have you heard of it? Have you heard of Saturday Night Live?
Have you ever seen anyone from Saturday Night Live just on another show while they're
Famously,
also
It films every Saturday at night, and it's live
in New York City.
In New York City,
they were like, no. But then the like Variety announcement went out or something that that Brownstone had optioned my book, and Aidy had already read my book.
Oh,
and so she saw the announcement, and then she reached out to us.
Oh, nice.
And was like, I would love to be involved in this. I don't know if you guys are still casting or what. And we were like,
hello.
You rejected us.
How dare? No, just kidding.
Excuse me. Your agents.
Well, we'll think about it, but the price has gone up.
Yeah.
Or down. I don't know.
So then Aidy joined up, and then it was the three of us co-creating the show. And then I remember specifically, well, I was just looking through the earliest emails yesterday. Allie and I had written, our initial pitch was like, this lady's a fucking slob. It was like, the character was still named Lindy, and it was like, Lindy's a big fat loser who sucks. Everything about her life is stupid, and it's her fault.
Guess how many friends Lindy has? None.
Now, like, the idea was like, I mean, much closer to my actual life, was like, this chick's a fucking mess. But in her head, she thinks her biggest problem is that she's fat, which is like not even one of the problems.
Not even in the top 10.
So the show was about her kind of learning to switch those two things around and being like, oh, maybe I should prioritize like my career and my relationships and my caring for myself and
washing my sheets
and doing my taxes and saving, instead of just being like, guess I need to be on a diet.
I guess I'll eat rice cakes and die.
So then there's an email from the Brownstone executive that we were working with, this wonderful lady named Renata, who I think is at Netflix now. This is how all the Hollywood people talk. They're like, oh, she's at Netflix now. Like, they all know like where because all the executives are just like always like moving around. Renata's at Netflix now. Loved Renata.
Yeah.
Renata, if you're listening, hire me to make a Netflix show. And Renata sent me this email that was like, Aidy's a little concerned about the pages. She feels like the character is disgusting. And it would be humiliating to portray her.
And you were sitting in your dirty bed covered in like tissues and popcorn, like, what? Humiliating?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot also. At some point I went to New York and I had lunch with Aidy, or dinner with Aidy, and our server was like, hello, I actually do improv, and dude, please leave this woman alone.
Oh, I just want the shrimp. Stop.
Oh, and she gave me a present at our first meeting, which is right here. Aidy gave me this little heart-shaped dish that says like.
It's cute.
I know.
It's very cute.
Anywho's. So Aidy was like, could we just have it be a little bit less negative and more nice? And I was like, I guess. Thanks. So then we revamped it to be pretty much what you see now on the show, where she's like kind of a little bit more functional.
Yeah.
And a little bit more assertive. Now Aidy's on board. Aidy, Allie, and I rework the pitch to reflect the new vibe. And this is a ton of work. It's like, and by the way that Hollywood works is you don't get paid for this part.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And I mean, like,
you only get paid if you sell the show or the script or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like, well, except Allie gets paid because she had an overall deal.
Yeah. And Aidy's rich, I assume.
Aidy's rich. So
you work for a regional paper and then a website that has since closed.
So I'm flying myself to LA.
Oh, good.
Putting myself up.
That's weird. It's interesting because it seems like Hachette would want this to be successful and that they would cover some of the costs, but I'm just a baby. So
yeah. Just a baby. So baby. Yeah, UTA, my agency, like, I think they got me like a minor discount at a hotel in West Hollywood or in Beverly Hills.
They were used They said use code
Yeah.
Jason15 for 15% off.
Yeah. So that was fine. Whatever, man. So,
Damn, Liz wouldn't even put you up in the pool house? What the hell?
I am too proud to beg,
Yes.
Meagan. Like, I
No.
couldn't ask.
Can you
know what
imagine?
I mean?
I would never. Imagine putting her on the spot like that. She'd be like, "Oh no!"
I mean, at a certain point down the line, I did have to start being like, I can't, like, because there are things that happen on set where, like, every episode, every week, you shoot one episode a week. Every week, the producers, which is us, get, out of our own pocket, not out of the show budget, get a food truck for the whole crew.
Oh,
and we do a different one every week. And I was just like, that's like $10,000. Like, I was just like, I had to be to Aidy and Allie, like, I'm sorry. I don't know. I can chip it. I don't know.
I have $500 max.
Yeah, like,
and that would actually wipe out my checking account, but you could have it.
I mean, like, to be fair, like, I was being paid well to make the show, but it was like, you don't get paid necessarily like while it's happening. I feel like you know what I mean? I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
And it's not like it used to be when you would make, things may have changed after the strike and everything, but it's not like it used to be where you're like, well, if it's successful, I'll get my residuals and
for the rest of my life.
Because it doesn't really work that same way for streaming shows. And
no,
because Bob Iger, who's going to fuel up Bob Iger's jet if they pay the writers?
It's so true. And it's like so
right.
unfair that like he even has to worry about that. So, so we rewrite the pitch, and like the pitch is hilarious. Actually, I should find the pitch doc. I have it. It's like the pitch itself is a whole script where you're like, then, and like, so like Liz Banks, I call her Liz. So like Liz would say like the same line like we're essentially like acting out this thing, pretending like we're just off the cuff. So it's like, okay, here's where Lindy does this anecdote. And then here's where Liz says that, God, I wish I could remember. She said the same thing every time. When I read Lindy's book, I felt a fire inside me. Or, like something where it was like, Liz, shut up.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, but it wasn't that. It was like funnier than that. Anyway, so we did the pitch all over town, Hulu, Netflix, NBC, I don't know, everywhere. What else is there? HBO, freaking Apple TV. Yeah, one of everything. And it was a really, truly wild ride. And like at this point, by the way, because of the way that it works, so it's like me, Allie, and Aidy. Then there's Brownstone, Liz and Max and Dana, because we're not a left. And then there's Warner Brothers. So then we have our Warner Brothers execs, one of whom I went to college with. And he pretended to remember who I was. I mean, so sweet, like the sweetest guy. But I was like, Jeff,
stop it.
Jeff, you were president of the frat. And I
never went.
I was
there.
this guy.
You never once saw me in that place, sir.
Sure didn't. And then like truly like an angel of a man. And and helped the show get made for sure. So God bless him. And then because Aidy is like an indentured servant to Lorne Michaels. Lorne Michaels' company, Broadway Video, is a producer. So then we had our Broadway Video exec.
Oh yeah.
Andrew Singer, another angel. So it's this like huge contingent of people.
Yeah.
Traveling all over LA, doing our little razzle dazzle. Very bizarre. And the stuff that we're talking about in these meetings is like me being like, so when I lost my virginity, and like everyone else is just doing business. And I'm like,
you're like, I had an abortion.
Yeah. I'm like, so when my father slowly died of cancer.
That's my life. Hope you like the show. It's a comedy, by the way.
I mean, it's just a fucking crazy thing to do. Don't recommend it, really. Anyway, and then Hulu was pumped. So we went with Hulu. I can't remember if we got I'm sure we got other offers, but Hulu was like, Hulu really wanted it. So they seemed to really get it and like it. And I remember our Hulu exec was obsessed with Aidy's husband, Connor. And he was always like, when are we going to get Connor? When are we going to get Connor on the show? Aidy, tell Connor I said hi.
Did he ever guest on the show? He did, right?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in seasons 2 and 3, and he's very funny on the show.
One day I will see it.
You will see it soon because we're doing this project. No, I would say Connor, and there's a whole little Connor corner of the universe, and it's really fucking funny. But yeah, so then it's funny. So now we're into like early 2018 because this whole pitching and like writing the pitch, developing the pitch, it's a million, especially if you have this many companies working on it. Every single entity gets to give notes on the everything, and so you're just like processing it over like whatever for like a whole over a year. And then it was like Me Too had happened, and there was kind of a little bit of chaos in Hollywood, I feel like, and a lot of shows had gotten dropped because people got Aidy and Allie and I were just working on the pilot script. Like we sold to Hulu, and the deal was to write a pilot. And then all of a sudden, like, I think we pitched in January, and then in like April, maybe, like just a couple months later, Jason calls and he's like, "Are you sitting down?" Basically, like, he was like, Hulu had a space they needed to fill in their lineup, and so this is getting fast tracked straight to series. So you're making a show, and
exciting.
you have to move to LA in a month.
Yeah, and I was like 6 episodes.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
Oh my god.
It's such a miracle for anyone's show to get made.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that we got to do it, and I don't totally know why.
Yeah.
But then we got a series order, and so then all of a sudden it was just like as fast as we could. We were staffing the room. I was finding a place to live in LA, and then we were casting, and we were writing at the same time, and we were figuring out, like, tons of shit changed. It was like, okay, once it actually, like, when we pitched it, it was set in Seattle. The character was named Lindy. And then it was like, okay, we can't set it in Seattle. We're going to set it in Portland and shoot it in Portland because Broadway Video, Lorne Michaels' company, did Portlandia and Documentary Now. So they already had a whole crew, like a great crew in Portland. So it's like, we can just use the Doc Now crew. Okay.
You and Samantha Irby moved to a fancy mansion in Los Angeles and knock out 6 episodes, and then no, it just wasn't that easy.
No. So yeah, we rented Martha Plimpton's LA house.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, Martha has a house in Brooklyn and a house in LA. And so Sam and I, but she's not, at this time she was not in LA, so she was renting it out and it was available. So Sam and I rented it for I don't know how many months we were there, 2 months, maybe 3. And I was like, Sam, do you want to be my roommate? And it was like the cutest house on top of a mountain, like in the hills. It had a like crazy view. We had a 6-person writer's room. So it was like basically me, Aidy, and Allie. And then Aidy and I each brought one friend. And then Allie had 2 friends because she was the showrunner. Yeah. And then it was just like so much work so fast. And I remember we shared our office with the writing staff of the show Manifest. I don't know if
the
that.
airplane show. Yes.
And so there was all this stuff in the fridge that was like, manifest carrots, don't touch.
That's really funny.
Also, I just downstairs there was oh my God, it was like the roast of someone horrible. They were writing the Comedy Central roast of someone horrible, but I can't remember what it was. But I just remember walking past that writer's room, and I was wearing like a shirt that said "fat bitch" on it. And I had a real chip on my shoulder at the time because I was semi-fresh out of the like rape joke Jezebel thing.
Debating Jim Norton on whatever show that was.
And I was just like, I know the guys in that room know who I am, and they're
They
looking
just
like I
just wrote a tight 5 about my shirt.
yeah,
So,
like I was just
cool.
like, Jesus fucking Christ, what's wrong with me? So yeah,
That's so interesting. I remember, so that summer, I remember that was one of those times that weren't texting each other a lot because you were so busy. And I was like, gosh, Lindy's life is so fancy. It's so exciting. And then when we actually talked about it later, you were like, I'm so stressed out. And there's so much work to do.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk about this later. But that summer actually was the summer of 2018. I think you were filming this.
yeah,
That was the summer right after Justice Kennedy had retired from the Supreme Court, and nobody thought that he was going to do this because this is even more boring than She's at Netflix. But he, Anthony Kennedy, shitty conservative justice, but he was more moderate than some of the crazier people on the court. And people were like, oh, he definitely won't retire while Trump is president because Trump is too crazy and he doesn't want someone that crazy picking his replacement. And basically what happened was behind the scenes, somebody went to Anthony Kennedy and was like, you can pick your replacement. It won't be somebody crazy that Donald Trump likes. So they basically let Anthony Kennedy pick his own replacement. And Anthony Kennedy picked his former law clerk, a man by the name of Brett Kavanaugh.
yeah.
So that summer, I was traveling all over the country with like a group of famous feminists on a tour called Rise Up for Roe. And it was like me and Simone Sanders, Lauren Duca, Brittany Packnett, who I think has a different last name now because she got married. Sorry, I don't know what it is. And
I don't know either.
Jess Morales-Rochetto, and it's like some other people who are like activists and pundits and whatever. And because I was traveling all around, at the very end there, my boss was like, just book your flight. Just tell the production company to book your flight back. And so instead of doing that, I was like, can you book me a flight to Seattle? And then I can take the train down to Portland and visit Lindy while she's filming the show. So I got to visit the set. It was very exciting. And it was for the pool party episode, which we will talk about later.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like the background of this sort of insane summer. And I think some of that stuff does sort of show up actually in the first episode of the show, which again, we can talk about in a second. But
yeah.
It was just this sort of very intense and insane summer on multiple levels.
It's, I could save this for when we get to it, but I wrote down that I wanted to mention that the line where Annie and Fran are talking about whether Annie should get an abortion, and she says, Fran's like, you need to do it before it becomes illegal.
Yeah.
It's because we were writing that episode on the day that Kennedy retired.
Yeah.
And I was like, hi, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And we need to acknowledge it in the show.
Yeah.
Because
I wrote it down
happening.
I wrote it down in my notes and I was like, I feel I feel so gratified and like validated actually that line made it into the show.
Me too.
Because that whole summer was like the summer of your being hysterical. Like people being like, the Supreme Court's never gonna overturn Roe v. Wade. They would never do it. It's settled law, blah, blah, blah. Sure, people oppose abortion, but the Supreme Court would never do something so radical. And part of the reason that I was like traveling around with all these women was to be like, hello, yes, they are. Brett Kavanaugh's fucking crazy. And this was before we even found out that on top of everything, he was a sex creep. And then, so to rewatch it and have that line in there actually felt a little bit poignant to me because I was like, we tried to fucking tell you. We fucking tried to tell you.
Yeah. But... And that was specifically about Kennedy. Yeah. That line. That's why I put it in. So it's interesting that we were having these like weird, not even really parallel summers, but like.
But a little bit.
Intersecting summers. I don't know.
Like these very stressful and intense and then like influenced by politics type of hot girl summer, I guess.
Yeah.
I really loved all that background information. I think it's so interesting to know exactly like how shows get made. And so much of it is just like getting lucky too, you know?
Oh, 100,000%. Yeah.
Our original plan was to actually talk about the episode, but this background stuff is so interesting. So tricked you. This is our first episode. But next week, we're going to get into the excitement of episode 1, which we've already shared some alluring facts about. So stay tuned.
Get ready. Thank you so much for listening to Text Me Back. If you like the show, please tell your best friend about us. Be sure to rate and review us. It helps people find the show. And most importantly, please support our Patreon so we can keep making this. It's patreon.com/textmebackpod. Text Me Back is a production of Meagan and Lindy, proud members of the BFF Network. Our senior producer is Megan Hatcher-Mays. Our other senior producer is me. Our show is supported by Co-Pilot Collective and produced by Allie Slice. Our digital strategist is Chance Nichols.
Diana Bowen is our video and creative wizard. Our production team includes Lindy West, Megan Hatcher-Mays, our loves, our anxieties, and our fears.
Our music is by Chief Ahamefule J. Oluo.
Special thanks to our perfect angels, Jeannie Yandel, Brandy Fullwood, and Isolde Raftery.
I'm Lindy West.
And I'm Megan Hatcher-Mays. See you next week. Mwah!